Good morning, good evening. Hello, everyone. I know there's some ads to get through, so the audience will join us as they can. But welcome. My name is Alyssa Nicoll, and this is the R3 release live stream for Kendo UI Angular in particular. And with me, I have Carl down yonder. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
And Tsvetomir. Wait. Oh, I did it wrong.
Hey everyone.
And they're joining me for a chat and hangout sesh for a couple of minutes in the beginning, and then we'll get to the juicy release highlights. So welcome, everybody. I see our numbers are going up. Can everybody just holler in the chat, say hi, and tell us where you're joining from? And while we're waiting on that, I'm gonna let you know I'm in the middle of the U.S. In Oklahoma, and it is 9 a.m. for me. And then let's do round robin in whatever order you particularly feel. Oh, and I'm a developer advocate. Let's introduce ourselves as well. People might not remember our faces. So yes, developer advocate for Kendo UI. All right, Tsvetomir, what do you got? Where are you at?
Oh, greetings from Bulgaria. Nice Bulgarian village, as you can see, with some babas in the background. It's almost Friday evening here, so it's a long call. I'm on the developer on the Angular team, and I'm here to share something probably interesting. Mostly.
Very, very cool. Very cool. I'm always a little jealous when I talk to you because it's like you've already lived the day, you know how it's gonna go. And you're always that much closer to a weekend than I am. So I just
Yeah, especially on a Friday. This is when it starts hurting. We're just starting our day, and they're wrapping up. Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow.
All right, Carl, you're up.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Carl Bergenham. I'm the product manager for all the Kendo UI products, including Kendo UI for Angular, which I'm trying to rep today with my Angular shirt, trying to be as Angular red as possible over here. Yeah, looking forward to chatting about the R3 release here.
Awesome. Sarah is joining us from Florida. Hello, hello. And Chris is from Virginia. I'm like always really like when they put the acronyms for the states, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's Virginia. So please, Carl, let me know or Tsvetomir, if you know. I totally may have messed that one up. But
I sometimes have to Google them too, so don't worry about that. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's Virginia. We're just going with it. Poor Chris is like, it's not. Oh, well, welcome everybody. I have today we're gonna talk a little bit with Carl and Tsvetomir, and then if you have any questions, he says Virginia. We've got it right. Like 10 out of 10. Like it's not.
Yeah, we don't want to get called out and be too embarrassing on live stream, right? So play it safe.
Listen. Are there any other V-name states? I don't know. I think that could have been my only option. See. Carl's like, yeah, there's like 10. Let's not get into it.
Now I have to think of all the states' names now, but I think West Virginia is the only one we have to worry about.
Okay. Oh, wait, do you know them all? Like, do you have a song? Is that what?
No. I do remember. So I am originally from Sweden, and I remember one pop quiz I received in 8th grade that was supposed to give us easy points, was essentially naming a bunch of states. And I remember looking at that and saying, wow, I only know like 5. So I tried to learn it, through like all the songs. And then Animaniacs had a good one. Animaniacs did the world, right? But I believe they also have, all the states as well. So I remember trying to learn it from that song. And never stuck with me completely. Oh, yeah, Vermont is, of course, a V state.
Vermont, I know.
It's right next to me. I know people there. I go there all the time.
Are they?
Yeah,
do you really?
Stream.
See, I've never been to Vermont. I have a smidgen of an excuse.
Yeah, it's very close. And that's just me. Coffee hasn't kicked in yet. Of course, Vermont is a V state.
And that banner is cutting off your head. I'm going to let it cut off my head. We'll swap. Now you have your full forehead.
It was better before, but thank you.
It was better. Well, welcome everybody. As you can see, super chill stream today. If you are in it to win it and you want the details and you're like, I don't know what this relaxed business is about, I want details. Well, there's a couple options for you. One, There is, I'm going to just go ahead and share this screen so we can see the beautifulness that is Dropbox paper. One, Carl made, let me tell you all, the most amazing article. Carl, I don't know how you do it.
I just write about the components. They speak to me, and that's
I don't know
what
how
comes out.
Like I every time I read him, I'm like, he's like Wordsworth, he's got a way with words. But he really did. He wrote an incredible article. And if you are wanting the details and along with links, today we're going to be going into some of those details. And I made these nice little bit.ly links. So as we go through, you'll see the bit.ly link so that you can type it. But if you pull up the article that I just linked in the chat, the links are in there as well. And they will guide you directly straight into our gorgeous docs and the feature or component that you are interested in checking out. So that is your option number one. Float in Pizza is saying hi. And I'm like, I was literally looking at my mouse on the stream and not my mouse on the actual. Woo! It's a morning, everybody. Hey, and then CIA, maybe? I'm gonna call you CIA. Hi. Oh, I love the little corgi. Welcome, everybody. And Ivana says, say hello. No context, Carl. The components speak to me. Oh, that was beautiful. She came in at the perfect moment. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad you're so active in chat. It's wonderful to see. If you have any questions or comments in regards to Angular or Kendo UI or Tsvetomir's background, those are the 3 topics of interest today. Seriously, we all love it and we need more of it. I want that. I'm gonna need you to send me that image after we go offline. But and Dan the Kendo man, like literally the first time I saw that, I was like, is that actually our Dan or is that another Dan? You never want to make assumptions online, but hi Dan. Oh my goodness. So yes, let us. I have, before we do this, I wanted to go back to this thing. I had a couple questions for Tsvetomir before he goes to enjoy his gorgeous weekend. Is it cold there, by the way? Is it cold where you are? It's freezing where I am.
No,
And no,
it's great today. It's actually been very mild for autumn.
Yeah, I was shocked. It was this week. I just walk outside and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I need like 2 sweaters and really thick socks. Like it just hit. I don't know what happened. And I'm in, Oklahoma. So we should still be receiving, probably most people are calling me a baby right now is what's really happening because I'm jealous of Sarah. I love the warm weather, like really warm weather. So when there's like a slight breeze, I'm like, oh, this is not good. we're not gonna make it.
That's your Game of Thrones moment. You're just like, winter is coming, and you start preparing.
Yeah, no, I'm like, it's here. Winter is here. Where's the puff coat? I'm a Floridian in my heart. Hey, everybody. It's so good to see you in the chat. Seriously, you guys are amazing. Do you want to know how warm it is here? Like, yes, I do. And I'm going to tell you how freezing it is here. Okay, hang on. I've got to translate from Fahrenheit to Celsius. I really should be able to do that math in my head. Okay, so it is 15 degrees Celsius here, aka 60 Fahrenheit.
That is cold. It's warmer here.
Sarah. She knows how to get me. I'm a fall girl. I love fall. And so she's drinking pumpkin spice coffee, but also it's 90 degrees there. And you know what that means? That means you can go outside and just lay in the sun and enjoy life. What is it there, Tsvetomir? Do you know I can do a quick translate from Celsius if you know the temp.
Okay, so 25 degrees.
25?
Celsius.
Okay. 25 Celsius to Fahrenheit is 77. Oh, that's like the temperature. That's like, you know it's fall because you're not sweating, but it's gorgeous. I'm jealous. Anyways, welcome everybody. Let us know where you're joining us from. It's so good to see everybody chatting in the chat. It's been a long time since we took off a little bit at the end of summer from streaming. And so I'm really excited to get back to it on Code It Live. And if you're just now joining us, today is a quick little recap on some of our favorites for the R3 release for Kendo UI for Angular. We're just going to chat it up for a minute and then we'll get into the goodies. But if I meant to say this earlier, if you're really in it to win it and you want more details, we're doing a webinar next week. And I think there's a way. Ivana knows the way. There's like some sort of chat command to giveth a link to you all. Thank you. You're beautiful. It's webinar.
Very intuitive. I appreciate that command. Yeah, it's not.
There it is. There's that progress link. So yeah, register, come hang out with us. Me and Carl and our new DevRel, Catherine, on the React side will be there to give you all the latest and greatest Kendo UI goodies. So yeah, we want to hang out. So Tsvetomir, let me pull up my notes. I had a couple of ask you this question notes. Okay, first one. What have you been working on lately? And are you allowed to talk about it? I should probably ask it in the other. Are you allowed to talk about what you've been working on lately?
Yep, always. And Carl always insists we talk about. I don't know why. But yeah, the last let's say bigger task was the heatmap, which is a type of chart. Surprisingly, just the one that you get in your GitHub profile that measures your commits up to yourself, if you're wondering.
Yeah, I'm gonna show it real quick. This one. Let's do this one. That one. That one. So yeah, this one, the heat map. So are you saying you are single-handedly responsible for the heat map?
No, not single-handedly. We have designers, we have trainers, we have other developers.
This like literally leads perfectly into my next question, which I was dying to know is, what is the process as a developer on the Kendo UI for Angular team? Because we have so many products, right? Like that have the same or similar components and features. And so whenever you get a ticket, if you get tickets, do you do tickets? That's question one. Does the ticket have like details of like, it needs to work in this exact way in order to like have feature parity for the other products? Or is it basically ground zero and they let you have a free for all and say, do what you need to do to make sure the Angular community has a heat map chart? Like, how does that work?
It's a mix, probably. So we usually work on customer feedback. We don't come up with things on our own too often. But yeah, we also do that from time to time. But for the heat map particularly, it was widely requested. So we had to get together with the designers, figure out how our heat map is supposed to look by default, but of course you can customize it. Choose a color palette for it. It's not a particularly challenging component to design, although it has some like final moments in the implementation, so it looks good in the end. But that's probably a typical process for a smaller widget.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Carl, do you have anything to add? And also Ray's solution said that not single-handedly, just 99% of it. So we're going to now rename it to the Tsvetomir heat map, just so you know. Because he's like, don't do that. Please
it's
don't
your signature line. We'll capture your signature and we'll have that as a watermark over the component. No, but to answer your question, Alyssa, there's a lot of research that goes into components. So like Tsvetomir mentioned, a heat map, that's a little bit defined that's a chart type that exists outside of GitHub, of course, that exists as a chart that has several uses. So we can look at all the common use cases for it, right? And sometimes it's a little bit more defined. It gets a little bit trickier if we are either adopting, for example, some feedback from customers, maybe migrating from desktop applications that are going to move over, or there's some use case that is kind of brand new and we have to do a lot of research into it, right? Because sometimes a customer comes with a request for a component and they say, these are our requirements. And then we have to think of, well, how do we take that component and make it so that everybody can use it, not just that one particular group of people. So there's alongside with the designers and the developers, we do a lot of research of what else is out there and what we would expect from it. And then, for components where we might not necessarily have all the features that folks might need out of the box initially. We might mark it with the beta tag, continue to gather some feedback, or do it in iteration. So there's a lot that goes into this for sure.
That I love that how much I've seen like our team like really include feedback from the community in like just the day-to-day process of building. And something that's amazed me recently was walking through the React components and like kind of having like this moment of like, wow, ours are so well, first of all, I love Angular. And so looking at React, I'm like, oh, it's such a painful world those poor developers have to live in. But on the flip side, I'm also looking at our components. I'm like, wow, it's so like custom for Angular. Like the way that these components are built is for an Angular developer. It's not like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like we have it on like, other products out there living in the wild. And I love that. And so I was just curious, like how you guys bring that to fruition, because it is very like, it's built in this language for this community.
That depends on the component. The charts in particular don't use Angular internally for rendering because that's mostly SVGs and Canvas, but that allows us to reuse them in other component suites as well. But other components, for example, grid, Gantt Chart, are very tailored for Angular because we have to integrate with the framework. And we still do code reuse, but it's not like on the rendering side. It's more on the business logic and data processing. So, for example, sorting, filtering, recurring events for the scheduler, or some other minor tidbit that can be shared between frameworks. But we usually leave the rendering and the final components that the customers use are implemented in the framework that they're currently using, which is Angular in that case.
Very nice.
So it's more work for us. But
oh yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah, no, the overall like use of it has been really smooth. And I wanted to show another one of the things in it's the theme dropdown option, which I think is at the top of this. This one. Yes. The gorgeousness. So I don't know if anybody in the chat has gone to our docs lately. You should go to the docs. But the examples, the demos that are like built live into the page have a little theme dropdown that you can choose which theme you want to use. And we've also added swatches, which are essentially like custom options for either default, Bootstrap, or Material. And something that I wanted to ask is like, okay, are swatches like, have swatches been a thing and I like just totally missed it? Like this, first of all, this term, and then also like, is it in our docs? Do people use swatches a lot along with Kendo UI, or is this just like a thing that someone knows? Anybody? Do you know? I'm like, where is this term swatches coming from? And is it documented? And do I need to know about it?
So I can help out here. So swatches, it's a term that we use specifically for when we like we have here, right, in these dropdowns. When you take one of the themes that we have out of the box, and it's essentially a set of a color schema, right, that fits within the themes and isn't just a bunch of random colors that you can select or control yourself, right, when you create your custom Sass variables. Instead, these are well thought out variations of each theme. So the term does exist within the industry as well, but the way that we can think about swatches is it's essentially a curated list of different color variations of our various themes that ensure that they fit together. So there's a decent enough contrast, and the colors kind of have a good flow. And we've had mostly folks might have seen this when they go over to the theme builder, for example. We use that term there quite a bit. When you go to customize one of the themes, we have these swatches available. But what we wanted to do with this particular update is bring that functionality into the demos as well, so folks can see a little bit more of what's possible just from interacting with the demo. So either if they're just looking for themselves, trying to find a cool color schema and say, hey, these are the colors that I like. Or we also have, of course, we've seen some people work with folks internally and say, all right, so this is what the components look like now. But what if we change the color to this? This is closer to our brand color, or here are some options. And they've even used that with internal stakeholders to try to figure out how to structure their look and feel within their application. So it's a cool feature to have, definitely.
I love it. I think something that it like leads me to think about though is we were on yesterday, and if you all missed it in the chat, Catherine, our new DevRel on the React side, did a killer job talking about the R3 release on the React side, but her application, it was just amazing. It was a Star Trek theme, LCARS, like the UI system from the ships. And so if you haven't seen it, absolutely recommend you check it out and pull up her GitHub repo, because it's such a cool like demonstration of customizing our components, right? Like, and making them very, very custom. And so something that this made me think of as we're like looking at these cool new swatches that you can just easily, like with these live demos, swap out, was customizing our themes. And so I actually wanted to ask Tsvetomir, do you have a personal preference between like custom properties, like CSS variables, or Sass variables? Like, do you like personally, like nobody else is looking? Do you have a personal preference between them?
Yep. I definitely prefer custom properties, custom variables, if you like.
Oh my goodness. It didn't go where I thought it was gonna go. Hot take.
Okay, let's say it that way. I think that they will, let's say, be the option for the future once we have web components everywhere, and that works with shadow DOM and so on. But today, yeah, Sass variables.
Yeah, no, I definitely can see that being true. Absolutely. It is the way of the future, but you can fight the future. You know that, right? Like, I'm kidding. You can't fight it. It's coming for us all. Okay, so
just real quick introspective, let's all just freak out a little bit on stream about the future. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I appreciate you so much. We're a little bit over on your time because I promised you only 20 minutes. So thank you so freaking much for coming on stream. It is always a pleasure to hang out with you. One of these days, I'm going to see you in real life, buy you a drink, and it'll be epic because, we'll both have legs and we won't just be torsos conversing. So. Oh, well, thank you, darling. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. I will let you go. And Carl and I will continue on. So, Carl,
yes.
I have so many questions, but I don't want to bother you. So if I'm starting to bother you, again, this is like, I really actually have no way of like signaling with my eyebrows, but that's what I want you to do.
Yeah, it's just sorry. I can't make both go up and down independently. Only the left one can go up by itself. But otherwise, I could do like the Jim Carrey, that he can do like one of each and have them go up and down.
It's absolutely his facial control is fantastic.
It's out of this world.
I wanted to address chat. Sorry, I've been ignoring you so much. I get a little distracted. There is somebody really sweet who is saying that they learned from some of my YouTube videos, and I wanted to thank you so much. And then also, I think Rain Lender had said was quoting, and I thought that was cute and funny. Anybody else? Ivana is in the chat with the emojis, and there's been lots of chat. Sorry, I missed so much of it, but I wanted to say to you all, I appreciate the chat this morning. It's so lively, or evening. I know some of you are elsewhere in the world, and I'm a little jealous of your evening. I'm a night person. I'm gonna be real honest. Carl, are you? I'm gonna go ahead and go out on a limb and say Carl's a morning person.
So I've actually forced myself to become a morning person. If I were to have my own natural rhythm, I'd be right there with you. In college, my most productive time for writing code was between the hours of 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. And then reality hit, and I, once I started working, and through working with everybody in Bulgaria, so they're 7 hours ahead.
Oh, right.
I've slowly but surely over the years adjusted. So, I used to, and I still need a lot of coffee to wake up in the morning, but I have become a morning person. Not, but if, let's say I could just go back, just like nature slowly
you
reclaims.
You'd slide back into your nighttime-ness?
Very much so. Yeah, because it sometimes happens on the weekends. If I get distracted with something, I look over at the clock and it's 3 a.m. and it's a real whoopsie doopsie.
When I was learning to program, I used to think that my, 1 a.m. is like my sweet spot for programming. But it's actually more like 1 p.m. Like the afternoon is like my ideal, like I can focus, everything's clear. After midnight, I think I'm a great programmer, but then the morning, comes around and I look at my code and I'm like, okay, git stash all of that. Right. So it's
yeah, you might make some more shortcuts if you're like me, when you're like, all right, I'm just gonna go to bed once I finish this one thing, and then the test is still failing 2 hours later, and it's like, all right, well, I'll just make this work just so the test doesn't yell at me, and then I'll push, and then I'm all right, there we go, and then you have to fix the mistake the next day.
Oh, so I have some questions as we go through. Carl, if anyone in the chat doesn't know, is an absolute genius. The man has the memory of, I don't know, someone named something that has a great memory. It's not a goldfish, because that's me.
Or squirrels. I think elephants are the most common animal, right?
I really want to know
long-term memory,
if that's true. Oh yeah. You have some backup in the chat. People are saying elephants. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know
Goldfish
why.
would be if I couldn't retain it, which there is some information that my brain's like, nope, and that's
false.
It's very goldfish.
There's just no way. I've never seen it. I have seen you pull things from the ether, and I'm like, wow. So we are blessed to have him here today. So I'm serious. As we go through this release, if you have any questions at all, plop them in the chat. While we have the brilliant, amazing Carl. Yes, also, again, the link to the blog. The blog has all of these links that I'm about to share with you. So pull it up if you want to follow along. The first thing is Bootstrap 5 support, which so this was cool because it actually supports both version 4 and version 5 with our current version of the Kendo Bootstrap theme. And so I thought that was neat that it's like support. I don't know what happens after 4. I wasn't around for the because I pretty much everyone is on 4 or 5, I think. So, but what is really neat is that again, with those themes that we were talking in our docs with the demos, you can actually like toggle and like check out what it's going to look like in that Bootstrap theme. So yes, this is the link to that if you wanted to go and pull it up. But really, I think it's just any demo, right, on our site. You can just check out the Bootstrap.
That GIF is just there to kind of show some of the differences because they are slight, but there are some things we did under the hood as well within the theme to make the transition a little bit easier. Adopt to things, as Bootstrap has evolved, less and less jQuery is involved, right? As in none right now with 5, and there's some things that happen there that we have to adjust for, but yeah, hopefully everybody on Bootstrap, is ready for 5, and if not, you're still covered for a little bit. And of course, older versions of our themes can still be pulled down as a part of their NPM packages, right? You can specify an older version if you need to retain that for a little bit longer. Although you have to watch out if you download a brand new component in the future.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But for those of you looking to maintain applications, you definitely have the ability to do so as well.
So I've got to ask, and I don't know if you know this, is there a clear winner with our themes? Because I think if I scroll a little bit more, we'll come back to the updated docs, and we have our default, which you see on the left, the Bootstrap, and then the material theme. Do you know if like there's like a most popularly used Kendo UI theme?
Yeah, so this is a little bit tricky because the default theme, it kind of gives the name away. It is like what's default out of the box, essentially our design language, what's available to you without having to either pick Bootstrap or Material Design. But because of that, and because you see a lot of documentation, that might initially highlight that, or you can of course pick and choose, but there are a couple of happy default ways that end up showcasing default, so it wins out just because it's in there. Kind of the main theme, right? But the other themes are certainly very popular because they're following the way that we look at it is they are design languages, right? Really. So the default theme is the Kendo UI design language. Bootstrap definitely is a design language, even though it might have not been using that term initially. And some people might have, some sticklers might not necessarily agree with that, but I would call it that. And the same thing, material design, we definitely know is a design language. There's definitely a pretty good spread. But if we just look at the raw data, default just might win because of how it's, the name gives it away. It's if you have something that's out of the box and nobody customizes it further or changes it, then it's very easy to have that, win purely with those metrics.
That is exactly where I was going. I have no idea. Srini? I'm using default theme for my personal projects. And also they said it's nice to hear about Bootstrap 5 being supported. I love the default theme. That's the one I go with most often. But I also have the tendency to throw in a lot of pink. I take our default. If you go and see, I take our default and I say, "Hey, orange, turn pink." Haha! Now it's perfect. Our world is now, yes. So I think
orange isn't too far away from pink. So I think that's good.
It works actually beautifully with the contrast because you still got your whites, you still got your blacks that like the main theme has, but then you just throw in some pink instead of orange and you're good to go. I think I'm going to make it happen. We've joked about a pony theme for so long, but maybe I need to just make a swatch.
Oh, yeah. The pony swatch. Yeah.
But something I wanted, and I mean, I'm assuming because it's like publicly accessible, I'm allowed to talk about it, but you can always give me the weird eyebrows. Oh no, I put my computer to sleep. Hopefully you can still hear me.
Oh, I can.
Okay. Yay. It just stopped sharing. I have hot corners turned on, which is probably not. And I just randomly hit it. Okay, let's share this again. Do your eyebrows, if things get a little bit dicey, but I'm going to pull up this link because it's on our development docs. And for those of you who don't know in the chat, we have a -develop branch version. I don't know what the proper terminology is here of our docs that has the latest. And sometimes it's things that are still in beta. And sometimes it's things like that are ready to go, but they haven't officially shipped for release. It's essentially just the latest version of our docs. And something I ran across was this Nouvelle theme. And I was like, this was along my vein of what are swatches? Why don't I know this term? What's wrong with my life? Right. It was in that vein. And I saw this and I saw the little beta tag next to it, but I also was like, wait, what? It's actually its own package and you can download it. Carl, help. We need to know what's going on. What is
this? So it is a new theme that we're working on, and this actually stems from some efforts that we're working on throughout the year to make working with our themes and customizing our components even easier. So I would argue that for a lot of folks that has already been something you can do either through the theme builder or through the SAS variables. But what we're looking to do is provide even more granular control for the folks that need that. And especially important if you're building your own design language, or even if you're taking, let's say, material design is popular in the Angular space since Google is in charge of material design, and Angular material is readily available out of the box for folks.
Yeah.
So you see that, of course, used a little bit everywhere. But what we're trying to do here is like I said, provide just another theme, and this comes from our I mentioned, our kind of review of how the experience is with customizing our themes. So it's something that's in progress. Like you mentioned, it's on the develop site. So for those that don't know about the site, it's essentially a way that if we have a brand new package or a brand new thing in the documentation, we have that branch available so that folks can we can get that into folks' hands if they need it, sooner rather than later. And as we're building things, we love having feedback. So pushing that out allows us to have links that we can then send to customers and people that are interested in, and gather that feedback as we continue to evolve our resources.
Yeah, I'm actually going to jump real quick to the bottom and grab this link for everybody because it is the feedback portal. which is what you were just talking about. So if there's
Yes.
ever like, I know we, I just popped it in the chat, but I know we, even in the docs, we are asking for feedback from our customers. Like, do you like this theme? Do you want this theme? Do you need a different theme? So absolutely give us your feedback. That is the link there in the chat. They really do listen, take it seriously, and we love to hear from you. But thank you for answering that. I was like, when I saw that, I was like, everything I know about the world is changing.
Yeah. No, you saw something that did happen after the official R3 release day. So it is something that we're evolving. And as you can imagine, right, we have over 100 UI components in Angular, and any one of our themes that we create, by the way, also work for jQuery, React, and our Vue UI components. So what's really neat is that if you find this and you customize it and work with it, if one team on within your company or somebody that happens to work with another framework outside of Angular, you can actually share that look and feel. So because of that, there's even more components that we need to sell. So it takes some time. So that's why when we release that, right, we have some components available. It's not all. And then we have that link to the feedback portal to get folks, thoughts on what other components would they like to see initially to help us prioritize. We, of course, have a list that we work with, but we do rely a lot on feedback to make sure that we evolve things in a pace that fits with you and your team.
I am doing something that maybe you should not approve of.
Yeah, what are you doing over there?
What? Nothing. I am trying to not override our styles. Why would I do such a thing? Let's try pixels. So I wanted to give the list of components, and I'm like just definitely doing this on the fly. So there's some way to make this list. I wanted to make it full screen, so I was deleting rows.
I see what you're trying to do. I see what you're trying to do.
I was I want. We have too many components now. Like I think it was last release, right? Like that we went over 100 plus, and I was like, holy moly!
It's a lot. It's a lot. Once you have triple digits, that's pretty extensive.
I'm gonna pull out the big guns here, and I don't want anybody to judge me for it. I don't need your judgment. I see you in the chat. Okay.
I like that you're trying to break something that I've never tried to break before. So this is.
Well, you're like, what are you doing? Okay, hang on. Flex 50%. It might be this flex line. Yeah, it was. I'm a goober. I'm a goob. All right, there we go. Just delete that. Delete that. So that gives us a little bit more, but I didn't get as many rows. I could keep adjusting and make us have more wrapping, but essentially if you go to taleric.com and then Kendo-Angular-UI and then the /components, that's where all of this is listed out. And that's where I rerouted. That's where I wanted to show you these little tag buddies. And so these are the updated flags for if a component gets a new feature. And then if you go over here, you'll see this on the heat map, the new flag, if it's new as of the last release. How long do they stick around, Carl? Will the flags be there until R1 of next year?
Yeah, generally for new components, that's the case. The updated tag can be applied to packages because honestly, if you see here, so some little pro tip for everybody: if something is bolded on the site, it is generally the name of the package. So some packages have multiple components in them. Some packages just have a single component in them, depending on the component, right? So the Gantt, the grid, they're big components, and they deserve to live in their own package. But then the drop downs, you might have multiple. And by the way, you can do tree shaking, AOT, all that good stuff, so you don't have to bring all the other components with you. So no worry about that. But we update those all the time. Essentially, if we add a feature, there are bug fixes, etc. So the updated tag might be applied to multiple packages throughout the cycle as we update them.
Oh, that's cool. So I just assumed it was on the day of the release, all flags get changed. So
we do that. There's definitely an extent to that, but we try to have, at least for the updated tag, have a little bit of a rolling update, and then you'll actually see if we happen to drop a new component in the middle of a release cycle, which does happen, right? Because we don't wait for the absolute end to push the last bits out. Then you also see a new tag appear there. But for the heat map, for example, that will probably have the new tag until the next release
Until the
officially
next
comes
one.
out. Yep.
So I wanted to talk about this for a minute. This is the demo app that I'll show a couple of the demos that are a couple of the new components in, and I'll implement them. And this is essentially, if you've never seen this before, the Tour of Heroes, which John Papa originally created, and it's used throughout the Angular docs to teach beginners about Angular. But I kind of made it my own with ponies and Kendo UI. And this is kind of another good example of how much you can customize our components. These are our like cards, for example, our Kendo UI cards. And I have this little sidebar here. And in relation to what Carl and I were just talking about, for each release, I'm going to go down to the last release that we did. I add these cards that have the description of the thing and the thing itself. So this one is the skeleton. So it's the skeleton. This one's the bottom nav. So it's actually got like a working version of that component in this little card. But then it has the ng add command so that you can add it to your Angular app and try it out. But also, this is like one of my favorite parts, which I mean, it's maybe silly that it's my favorite part, but it's what Carl was talking about. Sometimes people can get a little confused on where to find that component in particular. And so like the bottom navigation is found underneath navigation. And when you go to ng add, the package itself is the navigation package. And that's the same way that our docs work as well. So like if we choose one of our new ones, like the heat map, for example, and we go to our heat map docs, you'll see over here in the sidebar, could not word, you'll see that we have charts, and that is the main, like Carl was saying, it is heat map is a chart, right? So it's nestled underneath that, and that's what you'll either npm install or you'll ng add. And if you go to the main, what do you call it? If you go to the main package, so this one's charts, and you go to the getting started page, that is where on every single component, you're going to find the setting up your Angular project, and they will have the command for ng add or the manual setup process, which maybe you are on an older version. And so of the CLI. And so ng add's not working, or maybe you have feature modules. And so you want to do it manually and add it in only to the module that you need. So yeah, check out our docs. I really love them, and they're getting so much better. Carl, before I like full dive into just like demoing some of these components, can we talk about what's coming? Are we allowed to? I know you alluded to it earlier about how we're beefing up our documentation for specifically customizing, but I didn't know. Can we talk about that? Do you want to eyebrow me?
No. Jokes aside, there's a lot going on, throughout the year. So we do have a roadmap page that is good to keep an eye on. That does showcase what we have kind of planning. Now, something to keep in mind is that the roadmap right now covers essentially the rest of the year plus all of next year. So you might see some things on there that are planned for a little bit later in the year versus the initial part of the year. But we tried to keep that up to date. And, the disclaimer is that things do change, throughout the release cycle. There might be something that pops up, like, for example, who knows if a new version of Angular drops in the middle of a release cycle and it breaks absolutely everything for us, which can happen. It has happened, and it can happen again.
You know what's the worst, though, is when that new version of Angular drops like 2 days before our release. I will take middle of release like any day over 2 days before.
Well, I forget which version it was, but it was literally on the day of the release. The new version of Angular dropped on the same day, and just essentially an hour or two after we had shipped all of our packages. Luckily, with the release candidate, we were able to, prepare a little bit, and we were able to scramble together. So, kudos to our engineering team for being able to do that.
I remember that release. That was intense.
That made me sweat a little bit, and they do all the hard work for that, right? But yeah, as long as it's ahead of time, and as long as nothing too crazy has happened, generally we're okay. So on the Angular side, you can see that we have a lot of day zero support thanks to that. But you never know. Something, and I know this isn't necessarily related just to Angular, but for those that pay attention on the React side as well, React 17 came out, and it was famous because it was a no release essentially, or no feature release. Where there was, they released nothing in terms of features for developers. However, they were preparing to try to make React a little bit more future-proof. we had a lot of things that we need to fix within our components. So even though the framework itself might seem from the average developer that this change doesn't necessarily affect me too much, therefore this is an easy update. You never know. For somebody like us building tooling on top of it, there can be something sneaky under there that is that not sneaky in the sense of somebody trying to hide it, but more something you might not think is very apparent that can have ripples throughout our components that can take a little while.
Yeah, because it's not always like like community facing, like what those it's like sometimes it's very heavily like, oh, if you build a library, you've got work to do.
Yeah, so. And it can be a feature that you read on the listing, like, oh, that's cool. More features for Angular, perfect. And then tooling teams are just absolutely frantically sweating trying to get something together. But the Angular team is great with working, with the community. Both developers are kind of more consuming the framework, I guess we can say, and then developers building tooling on top of it. So luckily that hasn't happened in a long time. But just it can happen, right? Something small can accidentally cause some side effects for us. But generally, as long as it's not the same day, that's usually the one that breaks us the most.
Oh, yeah. So I think we're good for the next one. I think the 13 is like fallish, like late fall, I would guess. I don't know by any means. But and then our next release is next year. Right, beginning of next year. So I think we'll be pretty safe. I was saying, oh yeah, we've got a comment. Nice, we have Figma. Yes, so I'm super excited. I'm gonna move through a couple of our features. The next one is that for all of our flavors, we have a Kendo UI kit for Figma, and I'm going to actually go down to this so that you can see the Bitly link right there. So if you want to check out our docs that will link to the Figma kit, check it out. I keep seeing more and more projects in the wild using Figma on the design side, which is really exciting. Like I think 2 different people who I've either paired with or just was like, walking by and like, oh, wow, what are you working on? And they would like pull up the Figma kit the designer gave them. And so I'm excited to see that we support this now and definitely check it out. That is the link to our.
Yeah. And that's something that's evolving too, by the way, since there's a lot of components to cover. And our Figma kits aren't just, for the grid, for example, it's not just one big block representing the grid. It's actually the individual components within it. So you can customize, for example, one of our buttons by itself, and then you can customize the buttons that are within the grid. So these kits are really well thought out, but because of that, we need to, take our time with building them out. So we are constantly adding to this. So we cover over 30 components right now and some of our most popular ones. So hopefully that helps a lot of people working with Figma. And then, the goal there is to cover all the components.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm surprised. So the grid is in the Figma kit?
I believe it is, and if it's not, it's close to.
It's close to it. Okay,
out. Yeah, because it's built up by a lot of other components.
I was gonna say supporting the grid means like supporting 30 components.
Yeah. When you look into any one of our releases that we've done, building all these component suites from the ground up. Generally, the first component that we try to target is the grid. But what that means is that there are a bunch of sub requirements for the grid, like the button. All the various inputs, the drop downs, a calendar gets tossed in there because we need to be able to edit date and time. So they're in there, menus, pop-up components, all this kind of stuff. So yes, it's one single component, but generally in order for us to build up to that, we're talking, 30 plus components, just being able to make sure that we can have the grid.
So some of those we have the new components. So we've got 3 new components that were built out in R3 for Angular. Catherine said the grid is there. Shut up! Woo! Catherine knows all.
Yeah, I was like 95% sure. But thank you very much, Catherine, for making sure that it's 100%.
And sick avatar, by the way. I love it. Beautiful. Okay. So the Gantt chart, which is a sneaky devil. was added this release. And I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to the description so you can see the bit.ly link if you want to pull it up. But essentially, it is a bar chart that is illustrating, it's like a project over time. And I did pull this in to our app, so we'll show it off a little bit. But I did not realize this yesterday. Catherine showed me on her screen. This side of the Gantt is actually in relation to this side. Didn't know, Carl. Had no. That's
yeah. If you haven't worked with a Gantt before, it can be a little bit daunting to look at. But once you start thinking about the fact that it's essentially, it can be broken down into a tree list of data items over on the left-hand side, and then the right-hand side shows it off in a graphical way that's a little bit easier to comprehend. Because if you just look at a bunch of rows of data, right, and
right.
They have a start date and an end date, you might say, oh yeah, this end date, it's around when this other start date is, right? But you don't necessarily. It's hard to see that, like wrap that in your head, right, and be able to see that. So that bar chart over on the right-hand side helps just make sure that all that data is laid out in a way that makes sense. And of course, you can see what's dependent on what, because one item can be dependent on multiple other items. And then you get those nice bars at the top that also show like an overarching like a group, I guess we can call it, right? Mm-hmm. So in this particular case, when you're talking about research, research is a broad term, but we need to categorize our individual research efforts under something. Mm-hmm. And then you can see how, okay, the research will take this amount of time compared to the design, which will take this amount of time, and then you can break that down into the individual pieces, which is great for project management.
I broke my stack blitz. I think I needed a dependency, so I'm going to show it over here. But I love, it's huge, Carl. Like it's a massive component that they were able to pull. I don't know. It's very intimidating to me, just like all the features. And if you look at, if I pull up their code here, it has quite a few options. I loved playing around with it in my app. I was like, oh, what if I changed this? And it like instantly worked. And I was like, what if I modify that? And it was like so intuitive. So I'm loving working with the Gantt. And if you, I think someone in the chat said, wow, no need to depend on a third party now. So yeah, I love that it's built on new component. And I do have it in my demo app just on the sidebar though. But I want to talk about the heat map next. Because we are running up close on time. And so I wanted to talk about at least the three main components and touch on the features. But the big component that the Tsvetomir heat map, yes, we have dubbed it so. It is dubbed. So this one's really cool. And I also was a little confused because I guess there's a heat map outside of a chart. I don't know. Is there? Because everyone keeps specifying like it's a chart heat map. And I'm like,
oh yeah. No, so it all depends on how you want to define it. I think the strict definition is technically that a heat map is a form of data visualization. Okay. So therefore, a lot of times you'll see it as a heat map chart. However, since it's a component, and a lot of times I think the chart addition to the name doesn't always. It's not just a thing that people search for. I think the most searched for term is actually heat map. So it's just more or less just falling in line with the common usage of the word and of the component. But it's all the same, really. Okay. It is a form of data visualization, so calling it chart is a-okay as well.
And it's very, this is one of the ones that I went in to customize along with the next component in my own app. And it's really cool how just easy it was to, because I was like, green's not going to cut it. I need pink in my life. And this is very easy. I'm going to show you in a moment how to customize that. But the last new component that I want to talk about was typography. Is this new for, like, are we the first...
No,
React to pioneer this, or just
I wish we could take credit for it. No, so the typography component does exist elsewhere, and it's a common term that's actually used in a lot of scenarios for design languages. I know I've said that term a lot, so hopefully people aren't just rolling their eyes if they're not into that. But this is essentially a component that is used to ensure that you kind of retain styling throughout your application. So some folks might want to achieve this by using CSS or SAS and set that at a global level and enforce restrictions that users cannot override that. However, depending on your team structure, people might do whatever they want in their if we think about it more than just a single app, if we think about these as principles that help throughout multiple applications, then it's very easy for somebody in a particular view or maybe in one particular application that they kind of cheat a little bit. And they override some CSS, which can easily break things from a consistency perspective. So typography just helps you use a component instead for some of these, or it's a directive. So you can attach that to the elements, and it would adhere to those stylings. So you have H1, H2, all the headers. You have paragraphs. You have subtitles, warnings, error, success, those kind of things. It actually inherits it from our themes, which is nice. But it's a nice way to just enforce that consistency across the board, and using a different approach than setting the design guidelines, the CSS guidelines and trying to enforce those. So a different path to take to achieve the same result, but it's a cool component to have for that kind of consistency aspect.
And it's like, is this one of our only directive components? Do we have a lot of directive components? Is that a thing?
We do have so it sometimes this is something that is really cool about our engineering team, is that they try to think of, oh no, now I'm missing you. You're over on the left. Oh,
hi.
Yeah.
I'm here. Hi. Sorry, I wanted to adjust my I had a thing in the way, so I moved it.
Oh, yeah.
Good. I'm here.
No worries. I wasn't sure if something else was happening, and I need to dial 911. Yeah.
Earthquake.
So before we were talking about that directives. Yes, there we go. Lost my train of thought for a second. So our engineering team, they'll essentially look at common use cases for the component. And of course, also, from their own expertise, as well as doing additional research. And sometimes, we even ask customers what they think is the most appropriate approach. So sometimes to do directives, and sometimes to do standalone components. Directives, like in this case, for example, just allow us to attach ourselves to existing HTML elements without, having to write explicit components. So it makes it a little bit easier to I think, integrate into applications.
Okay.
There are, by the way, times when we have a directive initially and then we create a full-blown component later. It has happened when we extend features and functionality to the point where we say, you know what, this is actually better as a standalone component. And sometimes there's both. Sometimes you can do the component or the directive.
I love that. This was so freaking cool. I wanted to show, like, this is using the typography directive component. I'm going to call it a component, even though it's a directive, and we're going to.
Yeah, I do the same thing. But if we're being, the technically correct, which is the best form of correct, it's a directive.
I love that. So initially, how you use it is you throw on Kendo typography onto the element that you.
Oh, do you mind bumping up the font just a little bit? I think I saw a note about that.
Oh, so I did it after that. I can make it bigger if we need. Let me know if is it still small? Is this
a little bit
better?
Yeah, better.
Okay, awesome. So this is throwing on the Kendo typography directive that we were talking about. And then you can specify the variant that you would like. And there's actually one more variant outside of the headers, and that is a paragraph. So let me show you in this sidebar. It's going to re-render. And let me comment out this real quick because I want to show the differences really fast. These are obviously, were all divs, and now they have that. If we inspect it, to open it up and highlight here, you'll see they're still divs, but they're given classes for each one of these headers or paragraph. And what I think is so freaking cool, because I was like, how are they doing this? How are they scaling? How can because if we initially, let me go ahead and show my styles, not my browser list RC, silly me. Okay. So for those of you unfamiliar with this app, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller real quick so I can have more on the screen. But I wanted to show I've got these variables which are inside. They're commented out here because they live in the variables file. And they are just sizing variables for things. I use animals, and I've talked about it a couple of times before on stream. So if you don't know what I'm doing, it's just a way of having a sizing system that can scale, because there's only so many places you can go with large and small, right? Medium, that's your middle ground, and then you're kind of stuck. And so I love the animal system. That's what's going on here. But if we go into our global style sheet, I just put those there for reference. And so it's actually with Kendo UI, you can customize your themes. And I wanted to show me doing that. So this is what you're seeing right now is actually me customizing the typography component. And I'm just going to comment that whole thing out, and we're going to let it refresh. And so I'm going to show you what it looks like by default. And so by default, this is your header. This is your H2, this is your H3. But I built this Tour of Heroes app when I rebuilt it and reskinned it. I wanted it to be very chunky, right? Like if you'll notice, I'm pretty sure these headers are like 80 pixels. So they're massive. They're absolutely massive. And that was the style for my app. And so when I saw the defaults for these headers, I was like, oh no. And so, but of course, Kendo being Kendo, it's super customizable. So we can go in and give our font size variable. I'm giving it horse because if you'll notice up here in the comments, and I can make that a little bit bigger, that's 30 pixels, and I can uncomment it so you have the coloring. But again, this is being pulled from our variables file. So then I just customize essentially each size, right? Moose, bear, pony, threw it into these variables. And then last but certainly not least, you need to either import our entire styles from all SCSS or import, I'm just right now customizing typography. So I'm just throwing in typography. And so a little word of wisdom here. It does increase your build time if you throw in the import for all of your styles, right? Like it's going to be, because every time you make a change, and it's going to build it right there. And so if you go this route to customize, I would definitely recommend, especially just for like being on the development side, I recommend doing it per component. So like know the components that are going to need those changes and then include them here. Otherwise, just your build's going to be a little bit slow while you're developing. But if we go and show, let's see, this is it app module? I always forget if it's app module or I think it's Angular JSON. Yeah. So there's a couple different places that you can like include our styles, our theme. And this is where I'm doing it inside of Angular JSON. But if you go the route where you're like, no, I want to include all in my global style sheet and have my custom variables above that, then I would definitely recommend just taking this chunk out of here. So you only have it in one place. But yes, this is how easy it is to customize. And if we go back over, you can see that my H1 is much larger now, and that it's ready to use everywhere all over our application. And so those are the custom styles. Let me show you. Goodbye variable file. And I will push all of this up. So if anybody's like, I want your code right now, I will, after this, push it up so that you can see the latest tidbits. I'm not seeing any more comments in chat, so hopefully font size is happier now. And so other than obviously font size for our typography component, there are so many things that you can do, like the color of the header. If we go here, I'm going to actually collapse that so we can see it all in a row. So there's the font weight, and there's also the theme color that you can specify. Carl, is there anything else? I feel like I'm missing something that I didn't play around with, but maybe not. And so these are just
it
different
does seem pretty
combinations.
comprehensive.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yay! So yes, that is the typography component. I'm going to go up here on this sidebar and show you our Kendo chart, new type of heat map. I don't know what button I just pressed. There we go. I don't want to see a diff. Thank you, though. I've actually recently started. So I used to be a terminal only girl. And let me show you my terminal. It's gorgeous. Yes. Let us gaze upon the pink and green. I absolutely love this. I use Oh My ZSH. And so I used to be terminal only, and that's, I mean, you can kind of tell like I still really use it primarily, but I'm starting to get into a little bit, very little bit, the source control in VS Code. So if anyone in the chat is like, yes, I use that all the time, I'm starting to dabble over here, but I still really primarily use the terminal. So if we go up to here and we uncomment this chart, and I think, yeah, I had a skeleton placeholder. I love the skeleton. That was new as of the last release. And actually one of the features that we shipped, I think it's, oh, Carl's going to have to correct me on this one. We are now shipping like on scroll, the rows will like autofill with the skeleton component for when you're virtualizing like the data, so that it's kind of like a cue, like, hey, we are loading something. And I love that feature. That was one of my faves. But if we scroll up here, you'll see that I have a little bitty mini heat map. So cute, so darling. And if we check it out, it is in fact a Kendo chart with the type of heat map. And I wanted to show you the color actually takes like anything. This, I have a string for my hot pink variable that I use throughout the application, but it will also take lime green. It'll take color keywords and it didn't work. It doesn't need to be a string. Hold. I'm pretty sure it needs to be a string. I'm a goof. I got rid of the string on string. Color keywords, hexes, all sorts of things. I'm actually gonna make everybody dizzy by going over here. Sorry about that. There was, if we go here and scroll up, I want to find the feature that uses, where is it? Where is it? What
Are you
feature
looking
was it?
for the use of
Aha!
yeah.
Aha! Yes, it's a grid. I'm a goof. I'm like, it's something that scrolls and has rows. You would not, you look at me like I'm crazy. There's a lot of components that fall under scrolls and has rows. So
yeah, absolutely. No, I was waiting to make sure I wasn't jumping in there with another component that you might have in mind, but yeah, that's it's a neat thing they added it in with the grid, because if you think about grid during virtualization scenarios, which by the way you can control a lot of how the data is flowing in that scenario, but for like out of the box, you might load 100 data rows right at once, and then when you scroll to the bottom and you're loading another 100, what if there's a slow data connection for any reason, right? There's it can be either you're validating some data, or the server's down, or the server's just slow, whatever it might be. There's so many things that can happen. Anytime it's not client side data, there's something that might get in the way there. So what we did was we added this ability now to have some perceived indication of what's going on, right? So as users scroll down, instead of just seeing these blank rows with nothing in there, you get a representation of what is about to load, or that some sort of loading is happening beyond just the loading animation, which I think is really, it just adds that extra level of polish to the component, and for end users, it's great.
I love it. I think so. I did it on, I think the heroes. Oh no, it's on the individual. You might be wondering why it's loading slow. I use something to mock the data in this application, and I have the variable up a little too high. So just to show things like loading indicators, but that will help us on here when you can see the skeleton component that's kind of like holding components, I should say. I use very, very many. And so it's holding the place. And so it's like a loading indicator of sorts, and it's actually in our docs underneath indicators. So if you haven't seen the skeleton or utilized it, it's something that's really cool that you can like layer in. And I love that our team is using it, itself, like ourselves, to go ahead and show that user feedback. So that was one of the cool features I wanted to make sure to highlight. Terminal only gang, and yes, Ivana, just yes. This
that Ivana combination of emojis blew my mind, and I'm going to steal that. That is great.
I wanted to, okay, so we've touched on heat map. I wanted to show one other thing about the heat map, because you can customize the color. We're going to turn it back to my gorgeous pink, F03C97, in case you wanted to steal that. You're welcome. It's gorgeous hot pink.
What I like about that, by the way, is that you provided a primary color, but then you can see how there's a gradient of the colors automatically that happens. I think that's one of like the sneakily, like one of my favorite aspects of the component is that you just need to provide one primary color, and then there's a lot that happens kind of under the hood, you know, to help give, you know, for this lower value versus higher value. It's nice.
Well, I have two. If we go back to the dashboard, I've got two different ones. But yes, what Carl's talking about is like this light color here versus the dark color. And if we go down, you'll see the massive heat map, which I wanted to pull up our docs on the heat map. So you're going to actually watch the process of if Alyssa wants to pull up our docs. I have the grid on development branch bookmarked, and then I go to, we want heat map. So I need to find chart and then the type series. And then it's going to start with an H, which is in the middle. So something I wanted to show you in the heat map, besides the data binding, there is color scales. Oh my gosh, this got like I went deep. I went deep undercover into the color scale side of this feature because I was like, what is it doing? Because if you look here, this isn't, what would it be called, monochromatic, where it's like just one color going from like white to the highest saturation of that color, but we're going from like yellow to blue in this one. And so I don't know how much you know about this D3 scale chromatic business. I pulled it up and I was looking at it and I was utterly lost, like deep within the being lost. This is a really cool demo though. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to plop our heat map docs. That's very nice heat map. Now I will use it. Nice. I was just reading the chat. If you're watching on the YouTubes, let me show you. I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking to real people who really exist. Haha. Okay. So in the chat, there's the link to these docs, but really cool. If you pull up, you'll see that they're plugging in on color, the variable, and then they're setting that to use this I'm going to butcher interpolative cividus, which is from the D3 scale chromatic. And so I haven't, Carl, do you know much about D3 and its?
Oh yeah. Well, I know a lot about D3, but yeah. So D3, of course, is an open source library to help like build data visualization. They have a ton. Something that I should note here is that we are just using a helpful tool within the D3 community to pull out these color scales. Our data visualizations are built completely in-house and from the ground up. So you know, oftentimes you see a lot of actual component vendors or open source libraries, they take D3 and they build on top of that to create their chart. So I just wanted to mention that. But I think that what's cool here is that, you know, they have a lot of helpful tools around data visualizations, and even in this particular case, pulling in you know, different color scales, and the fact that we can integrate into that.
It's the name. This is Cividus. Yep. Oh, my mind is blown. I was like, they are doing some weird color math. Okay, I'm with you now. Thank you.
but then, you know, you can still customize that a little bit in terms of, you know, what the how you want this to look and feel. But it's nice because we're just using a tool that probably people already are using with their heat maps, or maybe, you know, that you also have a way to kind of you know, manually work with this if you like to extend it further. But since it is something that's widely available, we wanted to just show how you can integrate that into our component as well.
Very cool. Yeah, I pulled up this demo, did not mean to confuse the audience as far as it's not being built on D3 at all. He's absolutely right. It's just utilizing that library in order to pull in that color for customizing this heat map. But something, if I go back over to our list of amazing things, there's been a couple really cool, some of the features on our list of demos that the team has built. And I wanted to, let me go show, I think there's this drag and drop one where it's actually like between two different grids where you're dragging and dropping. And then if you go down, there's a tree list drag and drop example, and this tab strip one, which is really cool, where the team built out this tab strip example showing you how to do that. There was one other one. What was it? where they just went ahead and they built it out and like it's a demo for you to use. And I love that whenever they build out things to just kind of show like, this is how you would do something like this. Like, for instance, how can I drag and drop rows in the Angular tree list? And so the following demonstrates this implementation, right? And it's just a suggested approach. And so you've got these guys, you go, you drag and drop, it works, it's beautiful. Whoop, whoop, perfect. Collapse that, drag Martha all the way to the top. So she's her own tree, right? And then if you go ahead and check out the source, so freaking cool. And I love this about our team. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so I can fit more on the screen. But like some of the things that they ship aren't necessarily components or features, but it's showing you the best way, like demo. They take time to build a demo to show you how to put those together in the right way, right? To bring something into fruition. And so you can scroll through here and check out exactly how they're making that drag and drop work. But I was just blown away with the thoughtfulness of this, and I love that that's one of our features that we shipped this release. So yes, definitely. We are at the top of the hour, so I'm going to show one more thing in my demo. But the last thing I'm going to Carl's article of gorgeousness has all. I heard something about Heatmap. Hey, it's Fritzy. What's up? Fritz is in the house. Hi, Fritz. Hi. It's good to see your face. It's beautiful as usual. Hi.
Yeah, we should have had, and now that I think about it, we're bringing the heat with the heat map. We should have had like pyrotechnics going on behind us. That would have been the move. Would have terrified the cat that's sleeping next to me. Though.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I can't. But maybe virtual ones. Yeah,
hang
just
on,
pretend that there's fire
I'm pulling
everywhere.
you up to see. Oh no, I can't see Cat. I was like, maybe I could see Cat in the corner.
No, she's right. She's camera shy.
Deceived. Yeah. Oh gosh, yes. No, the heat map is sick. We also typography component, 10 out of 10. I did pull in the Gantt. Right now it's just a skeleton. Fritz is there, Fritz is here, Fritz is everywhere. I demand hot sauce tasting. Oh.
Ooh, a little Hot Ones Kendo UI edition. I will do that, but I will sweat an embarrassing amount out of my face. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Wait a minute. Sweaty face is not a thing.
Oh, absolutely. You do not sweat out of your face?
That's no, faces don't sweat, Carl. That's weird.
He's like, they do. Yeah. Have you seen Top Chef? They're constantly just like sweating from the face. A lot of people wearing bandanas in there. Yeah, that's. I don't even have to pull that deep to be like, no, there's dozens of us.
There's lots of examples.
There's lots of examples. Yeah.
Do you want to see the Gantt smaller than it was ever meant to be created? Because I have this sidebar, right? And my goal of this sidebar in my Tour of Heroes app is to just in some way, because sometimes it doesn't make sense, right? The ponies, they might not need a Gantt chart, right? They're up to a lot of shenanigans, but they're not up to that many shenanigans.
Well, they need to project management everything that goes on in the kingdom. So, there's one of these. I don't know which one. But they are in charge of everything, and they probably use a Gantt.
I believe that it's called a kingdom. Are you a bro? Do you know? Do you know about the ponies?
Growing up, I do have a sister, and My Little Pony was in rotation when we were younger, but that's like the OG version. But yeah, I mean. Yeah, I haven't gotten into the brony level. I'll say that, but I appreciate what the ponies bring to the world, and they definitely project manage everything going on in the kingdom.
So I apparently need to come up with some data for those ponies project managing the kingdom. But for now, the demo, anything that I just can't think of, I just let live in the sidebar. Like think of a real way to pull in to this application. So if you scroll down, there is the Gantt, smaller than she's ever meant to be seen in the sidebar. I'm going to figure out a way of scaling her better. But I mean, she did pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this is a testament to how great the team is with setting up the component, because it's not breaking in there.
it's not meant to live in less than 500 pixels, right?
Is
Like
it the best way to show what the ponies are up to and all the adventures they're going out on and everything?
Yeah.
No, but it fits in there and it technically is working. So I think that's pretty impressive.
So I think the heat map did a better job of scaling. But I honestly I'm so proud that I put a Gantt in this tiny sidebar. So but yes, I made again, I'm going to share the link to this GitHub, but I made a Gantt. I know all of these in the sidebar because I've got this lovely sidebar that I'm building out with all the little demo cards. And I'm pretty sure each one of them, instead of like inlining them, should be their own component. But laziness prevailed. And so I only moved Gantt to her own. And so you can check out, this is where I was actually setting that height and width. And I was like, hey, what happens if you go 300? And it listens to you. It does. But I mean, there's such a rich component. It should not be in 300 pixels, or like it just shouldn't, but it does it. And I love that about it, that it gave it its best shot. So yes, I think if you check out the data, the hierarchical, I can't even, there's too many.
No, you did it. You did say slow and hierarchical. Hierarchy. Yeah, I mumble all the time, so it's like one of my favorite words to stumble on. But if you go slow and you just hit on some of those hierarchical, yeah,
cool. Is that? But that's right, because that sounds so wrong. I think that's the hardest part about that word, is it just sounds false.
It's a lot. It is a lot of words, and a lot of words. It's one word. It's a lot of things you have to pronounce. Hierarchical, yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. So one thing, and then remind me about my question for you, and it's in regards to fonts. And I think it's already gone, but I'm gonna hopefully remember it. But one thing before we get to that. This is the data. I didn't customize it. Catherine on her React app, which if you're there or if someone is there and has a link to it, should definitely link it up, because it's another beautiful example of just custom Kendo components. But she customized the data. I need to get in here and turn this into Kingdom data. But you can see the hierarchy here in the of how the data should be structured to work properly on the Gantt. And then just the TypeScript component. It's just very basic. And just have data and dependencies. But yes, check that out. I think the last thing was, oh, right. That was my question. So on the sidebar, when I was implementing and having the time of my life playing with our typography component, Carl, I were looking at how to customize variables. When Catherine showed hers yesterday, the React one turns these into it turns them into headers. Instead of adding like a K H4 or K4 class here, it turns it into an H4. And so I was like, whoa, that's one of the things that I mean about how custom each one is for per product and per library. And so ours just adds, if we go here and refresh, I'm gonna put you that size so that I can see the chat. Did you know that, Carl, that React does that?
Yeah, so I haven't had the chance to play around with this too much personally. So we do have some of the developers in chat, so maybe they can either correct what I'm about to say or provide some more information. But I believe since it's a directive, you should be able to apply that also to the element. So I think that if you have an H1 element, you should be able to provide.
No, it totally works. I was playing around with even things and this is one of the beauties, because I've been teaching accessibility lately, and how to. Essentially, it should be a really big red flag if you are saying, I'm using an H2 here, and you say to yourself, why am I using an H2? And you say, because I need it to look like an H2, right? That should be the biggest what. And so one thing that's cool, let's say that properly, it's really the highest level on the page. So something that's really, really cool is that you can then go and use our directive to modify this so that it looks how your H2s are supposed to look. But it's actually an H1 semantically because it's the highest on the page, or whatever your reason. It might be inverse of that, right? So it absolutely works and applies the style. But I just thought it was really, really interesting that it's doing that with a class, and whereas React is actually changing it to be that thing. And I personally like the way ours works better, but I could be biased and maybe a little like React. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little bit of the kind of pros and cons of the director, right? So it allows you to attach it to any element. So even if you want to make it a div for some reason, right, you can. However, on the React side, what we're going to end up doing is exposing it as a component, which then means that when you say, oh, it's the H1 variant, it automatically will output an H1 as well, because, you know, when you make it a component, we are then in charge of what is the HTML that gets outputted. So then we want to make sure that, you know, well, you said an H1, so we're going to make it an H1. So there's a little bit more, I guess, strict in terms of the connection between the variant you select and the HTML element that you get out of it. While with Angular, with the directive approach, you know, nothing is preventing you from applying, you know, the H2 style to an H1 element. At the same time, nothing is preventing you from making a header a div and then not having the best accessibility. Or a little surprise for some people might be that it also hurts your SEO if you do improper usages of those tags and you know, have a div element instead of an H1 or H2, H3, etc. So it's a little bit of like a trade-off, you know, and also with great power comes great responsibility. So, you know, make sure that you stick to a semantic approach and try to cover, you know, the right elements where possible, since you know, we have to make sure we keep up with accessibility, of course.
No, and I realized I didn't show you. I actually just changed it to H4. So let's say we need the H4 styles, but semantically it's supposed to be an H1. If you go and look, I'll close that. I'll hide that. It's refreshing. If we go and look, this is an H1, but now it looks like our H4s, how I told our H4s to look, so that it would match our theme, right? And so that is honestly, in my mind, the beauty of this component, because you can be as semantic as you need to be, and then you can go in behind the scenes and be like, hey, we've already set up these variables using Kendo UI to make sure that our headers match our brand style and our sizing. And then you just throw on the one that you need it to look like. But really it's the right one behind the scenes. And so I love that. I think it's really cool. And that got me super excited. So yeah, I think we're almost ready to wrap. I wanted to mention there's features that we didn't get to and things that we're going to talk more about during our webinar next week. And so if you've missed it, chat's been going crazy every like 15 minutes or something, sharing a link to the webinar. So please come hang out with us next week. It's going to be so much fun. And there'll be more detailed overview, more structure of like what each product got and the features and explanations. And then if time, we'll go into demos and as well. But also if you have questions, I think pretty sure the whole dev team shows up to answer questions. So what is happening on chat? Let's see. The meditation improves the accessibility as it keeps the original HTML element. So that's where I was at, Ray, with this, because I was surprised to see when Catherine showed me that. And I don't know if that's like an option on the React side, but like, I love that it keeps it how, like, it's just obviously modifying, instead of the structure, the directives modifying the style of the element, which is how I think it should be done. So I'm right there with you on that. And I love that it does that. C# Fritz, there's no heat map in Blazor, but it's part of their roadmap. Oh, I guess we were asking about Blazor. Blazor's like, Blazor's so hot and it gets all the goodies. It's about time Angular got something that Blazor had, that like literally, like, wait a minute, Fritz, it'll have a heat map. Like,
you know, it's tricky when Angular already has the component. You know, we need to we're the trailblazers, and then, you know, Blazor picks it up afterwards. So, but no, it's certainly an exciting time to be a .NET developer, especially with all the different frameworks and libraries that you can choose for development. Just so many tools, you know, between Angular, React, you can even, you know, Vue or whatever it might be, and then toss in Blazor in there, right? There's so many things you can do.
I actually, Fritz, I was thinking about you this morning. I'm gonna make a PR for Clip Talk. I wanna contribute. So if heat map's what you need, But seriously, yeah, Chris was saying, thanks everyone. This has been a really, really fun stream, and the chat has been so like, involved and amazing. We will be, I really should know the date of this, especially since Catherine told me yesterday. Woof. Next week, the 28th.
Tuesday. Yeah, you were looking for the webinar. Yeah.
Oh my God, is it Tuesday or Wednesday? I have it written down as Wednesday.
It's Tuesday. The 28th is a Tuesday. I also open up my calendar just to make sure that I wasn't lying to you.
Okay, it's gonna be Tuesday, so come join us on Tuesday. I think it's like 11 Eastern, which is like afternoon Europe or evening Europe, depending on where you are in Europe. But yeah, come join us, come hang out. It's gonna be a blast. And I think that's it. Unless Carl, you had anything else to add?
No. That's we covered a lot, but not everything. So we'll be able to show all the new components and features with that, and of course we'll cover everything under the Kendo UI umbrella. So it's jQuery, Angular, React, and Vue all in one session. So
Yes.
if you want to see what's out there for all the libraries and frameworks, if you just want to tune into yours, either way, we'll happily have you. We'll have, just like we had here, a lot of our engineers helping out in chat. We'll continue to do that as well in the chat during the webinar. So you can continue to ask any and all questions. So I have some of the people that actually wrote the components and features themselves
Answering your questions.
So it's a pretty cool time to be able to ask questions for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Carl, so much for your time. And thank you, chat, so much for yours. It was a beautiful stream. And I'll see you all next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.